The day you decide to raise your standards is the day your life begins to change in ways you never imagined. Right now, you might feel stuck, caught in the endless loop of self-doubt, indecision, distractions that keep you from becoming the person you know you could be. Maybe you scroll through social media, watch the clock, or wait for the perfect moment that never comes. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, teaches us that life does not hand power or purpose to the hesitant. The moment you take responsibility for your mind, for your actions, and for the life you are willing to tolerate, you step into a level of strength few ever reach. Think about it. Your current reality is the result of the choices you've made and the standard you accept from yourself. If you allow mediocrity to dictate your days, life will mirror it. But the moment you refuse to settle, the moment you raise your personal expectations in discipline, in courage, in integrity, the world begins to respond to the energy you radiate. You don't need permission from anyone. You don't need external validation. True power begins the instant you stop negotiating with yourself. It begins when you stop making excuses for why you can't, and instead ask, what is required of me right now to be better, stronger, unstoppable? Every decision, every habit, every small choice compounds into the person you are becoming. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your mind is the battlefield, and self-doubt is the silent enemy that convinces you that waiting is safer than action, that comfort is greater than growth. But growth never comes from comfort. The life you dream of, the inner strength you crave, the unstoppable version of yourself, it is waiting beyond the threshold of your current limits, and the only way to cross that threshold is to raise your standards, to demand more from yourself than you ever have before, to reject distractions, to silence indecision, and to confront the fears you have been hiding from. The question is, will you let another day pass where you settle for less, or will today be the day you declare, silently but fiercely, that you will no longer accept mediocrity? Because once you do, once you raise your standards, life starts to respond. Doors open that were invisible before. Confidence replaces hesitation, focus replaces chaos, and the small victories you achieve daily, fueled by this higher standard, begin to build a foundation of unstoppable momentum. Raising your standards is not just about what you do externally, it is about what you allow internally. Too often, we give away our power by tolerating negative self-talk, by letting fear and doubt dictate our choices. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Every thought you entertain, every mental habit you tolerate, becomes the fabric of your reality. If you constantly doubt yourself, if you shrink from challenge, if you settle for excuses, your life will reflect that. But when you demand excellence from your own mind, when you refuse to entertain the lies that tell you you are not enough, everything changes. Your actions become sharper, your decisions clearer, your energy unshakable. Imagine this. Every day you make small compromises. You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, or I'm not ready yet, or maybe I don't deserve this. These whispers of indecision are subtle thieves of potential. They rob you of the momentum that could transform your life. But the moment you raise your standards, you begin to refuse these compromises. You begin to insist on clarity where there was confusion, courage where there was fear, and discipline where there was laziness. You no longer wait for motivation, because the Stoics teach us that motivation is fleeting. You rely on principle, on the unwavering decision to act in alignment with the highest version of yourself. Life does not reward the timid or the hesitant. It rewards the relentless, those who refuse to settle for less than they are capable of. And here is the truth. Your highest self has been waiting quietly, impatiently, behind the veil of your current excuses. Every time you lower your standards, you turn away from that self. Every time you raise them, you step into your power, your freedom, your destiny. Think about it. Raising your standards is not just a choice, it is a declaration. A declaration that you will no longer allow mediocrity to define your life. A declaration that you will take ownership of your mind, your actions, and the results you create. And yes, it is hard. It is uncomfortable. Growth always is. But remember this, comfort is the enemy of greatness. Every discomfort you endure while raising your standards is a seed of strength, a building block of the unshakable character Marcus Aurelius spoke of. The question is not whether you will face resistance, you will. The question is whether you will persist, whether you will hold the standard high even when it is inconvenient, even when it is lonely, even when no one else notices. Because it is in those moments, in the quiet battle with yourself, that true power is forged. You cannot change what you do not see, and Marcus Aurelius constantly reminds us that self-awareness is the first step toward mastery. Look at your life, honestly. Look at the habits you tolerate, the excuses you repeat, the compromises you make daily that silently erode your potential. Ask yourself, which parts of my life are beneath the level of excellence I am capable of? Which thoughts, which routines, which behaviors are holding me back from becoming unstoppable? This is not about guilt or shame. It is about clarity, because once you see it, you can no longer ignore it. Here is the practical truth. Your environment, your friends, your routines, they all conspire to define the level of life you accept. If you surround yourself with distraction, laziness, or negativity, you will subconsciously lower your standards to match. But if you deliberately choose what you consume, who you associate with, and the daily practices you uphold, you create an invisible force field around your potential. You begin to elevate not just your actions, but your identity. Marcus Aurelius believed that character is revealed in small, consistent actions. The seemingly insignificant choices, choosing discipline over comfort, focus over distraction, courage over avoidance, compound into an unstoppable momentum that transforms your life. Think of the small moments, the alarm you hit snooze on versus the one you rise to conquer, the food you eat that fuels lethargy versus the meal that strengthens you, the time wasted on meaningless scrolls versus the time spent sharpening your mind, your body, your purpose. Each choice is a brushstroke on the canvas of your destiny. Raise your standards here, in these moments, and you begin a ripple effect that touches everything in your life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Do not wait for the perfect conditions. Do not wait for motivation to strike. Start now." And here is where most fail. They think raising standards is a single dramatic event. It is not. It is 1,000 daily decisions where you refuse to accept less than you are capable of. It is choosing courage when fear whispers, discipline when laziness calls, clarity when confusion beckons. It is choosing action over inertia every single day. Every day you make these choices, you step closer to a life of true power, a life where doubt no longer has the final say, where distractions are merely obstacles you move through with precision, and where your inner strength becomes the force that shapes your destiny. But to do this, you must be honest with yourself. Look into the mirror of your mind and confront what you have tolerated. Ask yourself, am I living according to my potential, or am I hiding behind convenience and excuses? The moment you stop tolerating mediocrity, the moment you decide that your standards are non-negotiable, the world begins to align with the energy you are putting out. You will notice doors opening, opportunities appearing, and most importantly, a shift within yourself, a quiet, unshakable confidence that grows with every standard you uphold. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. True freedom, true power, comes from self-mastery, and self-mastery begins the moment you refuse to settle for anything less than your highest standard. Think about the moments in life when you felt truly small, powerless, or invisible. Maybe it was at work when your effort went unnoticed. Maybe it was in a relationship when your needs were ignored. Or perhaps it was in your own mind, wrestling with fear, self-doubt, or indecision. These moments are not signs that life is against you. They are signals that your standards have been too low, that you have been tolerating less than you deserve. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that suffering is not in the world around us, but in our judgments about it. The key is not to wait for life to change. It is to change yourself, to raise your standard, and suddenly the same world looks different. Imagine a man who wakes up each day tired, distracted, unsure of himself. He tells himself, "I'll start tomorrow. I'll try harder next week." He drifts through life, waiting for luck or motivation to strike. And then one day, something shifts. He decides, silently but fiercely, that mediocrity will no longer define him. He refuses to tolerate excuses, refuses to allow fear to dictate his choices, refuses to let distraction steal his focus. Suddenly, the small actions he takes, getting out of bed early, reading instead of scrolling, choosing discipline over comfort, begin to compound. He is not different overnight, but his momentum is unstoppable. His mind becomes sharper, his decisions clearer, his life richer. That is the power of raising your standards. Raising standards is not abstract, it is practical. It is in the way you respond to challenges, in how you manage your time, in the quality of your relationships, in the consistency of your habits. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time complaining about what you cannot control. Focus on what you can. Your standards are your control. When you insist on integrity, on courage, on excellence, your life reshapes itself around those choices. Your mind becomes a fortress where self-doubt no longer holds sway. Your actions become precise instruments of growth. And slowly, the people, the opportunities, and the results you once dreamed of begin to appear, not because the world changed, but because you did." Consider another example, a young woman struggling with fear of failure. She wants to start her own business, to speak her truth, to create something meaningful, but she allows the whisper of doubt to dominate. Every "I can't," she tells herself, is a compromise with mediocrity. Then she decides to raise her standards, to honor her potential above her fear. She begins small, committing to one disciplined action daily, learning, reaching out, taking risks she once avoided. Gradually, the world responds to her clarity and focus. Doors open, networks expand, her confidence grows. Raising standards is the catalyst, action is the vehicle. The life she dreamed of is not gifted. It is claimed step by step by refusing to tolerate less than she is capable of. This is what Marcus Aurelius teaches through every line he wrote. The power to shape your life lies within, in your standards, in your habits, in the relentless decisions you make each day. Stop waiting for inspiration. Stop hoping for luck. Stop blaming circumstance. Raise your standards today and your life will begin to transform in ways you cannot yet imagine. Every moment you act with higher standards, you are building a life that reflects strength, courage, and unstoppable momentum. Now, let's be brutally honest. Every day you refuse to raise your standards, you are paying a hidden price. It is not just wasted time, it is lost potential, eroded confidence, and dreams quietly slipping through your fingers. The small compromises you tolerate today, procrastination, distraction, self-doubt, excuses, they accumulate layer by layer until you wake up one day realizing that life has passed by while you were waiting for permission or motivation. Marcus Aurelius warned against this passive surrender. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Your life is not guaranteed tomorrow. Every moment you tolerate mediocrity, every choice to settle, is a moment stolen from the life you were meant to live. Imagine the man who never confronts his fear of failure. He dreams of greatness, of mastering his craft, of building influence and impact, but he waits. He convinces himself he's not ready. He settles for the ordinary because the extraordinary feels uncomfortable. Years pass, and he looks back only to see a life full of missed opportunities, what-ifs, and regret. The regret of inaction is heavier than the burden of effort. It gnaws at your mind, it stifles your courage. It whispers that you could have been more, done more, become more. Marcus Aurelius teaches that the obstacle is the path, that discomfort, fear, and challenge are the very instruments through which we grow. Ignoring them, tolerating less, is choosing a life beneath your potential. Now imagine a different scenario. Someone else faces the same fears, the same obstacles, the same moments of doubt, but they refuse to let those fears dictate their choices. They recognize that mediocrity is not just a habit, it is a slow poison, a surrender to circumstance. They begin raising their standards, step by step. No grand announcements, no dramatic changes, just relentless, disciplined action. They honor their commitments to themselves, even when no one is watching. They embrace discomfort as the fuel for growth. They take responsibility for every thought, every habit, every choice. Slowly, imperceptibly, at first, their life begins to shift. People notice their energy, their focus, their unshakable presence. Doors open, opportunities appear, and the momentum they create propels them toward the life that once felt impossible. This contrast should shock you. The same world, the same circumstances, the same amount of time, yet two entirely different outcomes. What separates the two is standards. Not talent, not luck, not circumstance. Standards. Your life rises or falls according to the expectations you hold for yourself. If you tolerate mediocrity, you will receive it in full measure. If you insist on excellence, you will find strength, opportunity, and results beyond imagination. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the universe responds to intention and action. The energy you put out, the standard you uphold, shapes the reality you experience. So here is the stark truth. If you continue to allow your standards to remain low, you are surrendering to a life of quiet disappointment, hidden regret, and untapped potential. But if you take the courage to raise them, if you decide today that you will no longer negotiate with mediocrity, everything changes. You will begin to act differently, think differently, and see differently. You will attract challenges that match your strength, opportunities that match your ambition, and results that reflect the power of a mind and spirit committed to excellence. Raising your standards is not just a choice, it is the act of claiming your destiny, of refusing to be small, of stepping into the life you were always meant to lead. Raising your standards is not just an idea, it is a practice, a daily discipline that shapes every aspect of your life. Marcus Aurelius taught that we are what we repeatedly do, and excellence is no exception. To transform your life, you must begin with the small, deliberate actions that demonstrate your commitment to a higher standard. Start with your mornings. How you begin the day determines the tone of everything that follows. Will you hit snooze, stumble through distraction and delay, or will you rise with intention, commanding your energy, your focus, and your purpose? Every morning is a choice, a chance to reaffirm who you are and what you will tolerate. Next, examine the quality of your thoughts. The Stoics believed that the mind is the ultimate battlefield. Self-doubt, fear, and indecision are invisible chains, subtly guiding your actions and shaping your reality. Ask yourself, am I feeding my mind with clarity and courage, or am I allowing it to dwell on excuses and limitations? Write down your intentions, repeat them. Remind yourself that you are capable of more than you realize. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that no external circumstance can diminish the power of a disciplined, focused mind. Your inner world sets the stage for every external victory. Then turn to your actions. Raising your standards is not about waiting for perfect conditions, it is about acting with excellence in every situation, however small. Complete the tasks you start. Honor your commitments. Speak with integrity even when it is uncomfortable. Push your limits physically, mentally, and emotionally. Discipline in these areas becomes the foundation upon which every achievement is built. When you refuse to accept shortcuts, when you insist on doing what is hard but necessary, you forge resilience, confidence, and unshakable momentum. Equally important is the company you keep. Marcus Aurelius often emphasized the influence of those around us. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, who elevate your thinking, who hold themselves to high standards. Distance yourself from those who tolerate mediocrity, who feed your doubts, or who encourage complacency. Your environment will either reinforce your growth or undermine it. Raising your standards is as much about what you remove from your life as what you add. Finally, embrace reflection. Each night, review your day with honesty. Where did you meet your standards? Where did you falter? Where did you allow excuses to creep in? Reflection is not punishment, it is the compass that guides improvement. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, reminding himself that mastery is built on continual adjustment and self-awareness. With every conscious decision to act, every habit strengthened, and every moment of courage embraced, you are building the life of someone who does not settle, someone unstoppable, resilient, and fully alive. Raising your standards is not a one-time act, it is the sum of consistent, deliberate choices. It is waking up early when the world sleeps. It is working harder when others quit. It is thinking clearly when chaos surrounds you. It is acting with integrity when no one is watching. And it is holding yourself accountable, fiercely and relentlessly, until excellence becomes the default state of your life. This is the Stoic path, not of comfort, not of excuses, but of strength, clarity, and mastery over your own mind. Every life is a story being written in real time, and the pen rests in your hand. Yet most people live as if someone else is authoring their chapters, letting circumstance, habit, or fear decide what unfolds. Marcus Aurelius teaches that the only true freedom is the mastery of one's own choices. The day you decide that your standards define your actions is the day you reclaim the narrative of your life. You stop being a spectator and start being the architect of every moment, every outcome, every victory. Imagine the clarity that comes when your decisions are guided not by fleeting emotions or external pressures, but by unwavering principles that you refuse to compromise. Consider a young athlete, talented but inconsistent. For years, they trained only when motivation appeared, skipping effort when convenience whispered its lies. Talent alone could only carry them so far. Then came a shift, a recognition that mediocrity was a personal decision, not a fate. The athlete began demanding more, sharper focus in practice, greater discipline in recovery, unwavering commitment to their craft. The change was subtle at first, harder, workouts, disciplined routines, mental fortitude, but over months the results became undeniable. Strength increased, skill sharpened, confidence expanded. Their environment shifted, teammates and mentors responded differently, the same hours, the same talent, but a new standard transformed ordinary effort into extraordinary achievement. This is the essence of raising standards. The transformation is rarely immediate, but it is inevitable when consistency is embraced. It is not external reward that drives the shift, it is internal insistence. The difference between stagnation and growth lies entirely in the level of expectation you hold for yourself. Do you accept half-hearted effort, comfort, and delay, or do you demand relentless integrity, courage, and focus? Every decision, every thought, every habit becomes a reflection of the standard you enforce. And as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the soul becomes aligned with its own convictions. The life you experience is the mirror of the life you authorize within. Raising your standards also reshapes how you confront adversity. Challenges no longer feel like random punishment. They are instruments of growth, opportunities to test your resolve, and proving grounds for character. When life pushes hard, you push harder, not because the world requires it, but because you hold yourself to a level that does not yield to resistance. Fear, distraction, and doubt lose their grip when your inner authority is solid. You begin to notice that problems are not barriers, but thresholds to greater capability. Each obstacle is a mirror revealing whether you will retreat to old habits or rise to the elevated standard you now maintain. The truth is simple yet profound. Most lives fail to reach their potential not because of external limitations, but because of self-imposed ceilings. Your standards are the invisible measure against which all achievement is weighed. The day you refuse to tolerate mediocrity, the day you insist on more from yourself in thought, action, and presence, is the day your trajectory changes irreversibly. Momentum begins to accumulate. Opportunities appear in alignment with your energy. Confidence solidifies. And the ordinary moments of daily life, once wasted, become the very foundation of extraordinary living. The most dangerous battles you will ever fight are not in the world outside, but within the walls of your own mind. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Yet most people allow their thoughts to control them rather than commanding their thoughts to serve their higher purpose. Self-sabotage comes quietly. It disguises itself as comfort, doubt, or hesitation. It whispers not today or maybe later. It convinces you that avoiding discomfort is the path to survival, when in truth, avoiding challenge is surrender. If you want to raise your standards, you must first confront this subtle enemy. Imagine a talented professional who constantly hesitates before speaking up at work, delaying decisions, letting opportunities slip through their fingers. Every time fear wins, their potential shrinks slightly, confidence erodes, and momentum stalls. This is the reality of minds that tolerate mediocrity. But the moment they decide to face fear, to demand courage from themselves, the shift begins. Each small act of resistance, speaking up once, taking responsibility once, acting despite uncertainty, compounds into a fortress of self-command. The mind, once chaotic and weak, becomes disciplined, sharp, and unshakable. Raising your standards is not about avoiding fear, it is about refusing to let fear dictate the story of your life. Internal resistance also manifests as distraction. Social media, endless scrolling, trivial worries, idle habits, all subtle thieves of potential. They feel harmless, even normal, yet each moment surrendered is a step away from your higher standard. Marcus Aurelius taught that a wise person organizes their life according to reason and purpose. To raise your standards, you must ruthlessly protect your time and attention. Every hour spent unconsciously is a brick in the cage of mediocrity. Every hour spent deliberately in pursuit of growth, knowledge, and discipline is a building block for mastery. Self-doubt is another powerful weapon used by your own mind to keep you confined. It tells you that your dreams are too big, your goals too ambitious, your efforts insufficient. But understand this, doubt is not reality, it is a test of whether you will let your inner authority dominate the whispers of weakness, or whether you will allow your mind to shrink to fit your fears. Each time you act despite doubt, each time you rise when uncertainty presses down, you expand the boundaries of what you consider possible. Your standards rise, and with them, your life. Finally, take responsibility for the invisible habits that shape your thoughts. The books you read, the ideas you expose yourself to, the conversations you engage in, they all either elevate or diminish your mind. Marcus Aurelius constantly examined his own judgments, asking whether his thoughts aligned with virtue and purpose. To raise your standards, you must do the same. Choose input that strengthens your intellect, nourishes your discipline, and challenges your comfort zone. Let every choice, every action, every thought reflect the standard you are committed to uphold. This is how inner resistance is conquered. This is how self-sabotage is dismantled. This is how a life of unstoppable momentum begins. Your life is the sum of your daily choices, yet most people allow those choices to drift without direction. Marcus Aurelius constantly emphasized that excellence is cultivated in the ordinary, in the seemingly insignificant moments that define character over time. To raise your standards, you must take command of your routines. Every habit, every ritual, every repeated action becomes either a ladder toward mastery or a trap that keeps you grounded in mediocrity. It begins with awareness, but it is sustained through deliberate design. Start with your morning. The first hour sets the tone for everything that follows. Will you linger in lethargy, scrolling through distractions, surrendering your energy to chaos? Or will you rise with purpose, nourishing your body, sharpening your mind, and committing yourself to the standard you intend to uphold? Simple acts, making your bed, meditating, journaling, exercising, are not trivial. They are signals to yourself that mediocrity will no longer define your life. They are daily victories that compound into resilience, confidence, and unstoppable momentum. Next, examine your work habits. Discipline is forged in consistency, in the courage to tackle difficult tasks instead of avoiding them. Marcus Aurelius understood that action aligned with principle produces freedom. The work you do when no one is watching, the effort, focus, and persistence builds a foundation no external circumstance can shake. Avoid the trap of doing what is easy, convenient, or pleasurable at the cost of long-term growth. Excellence is rarely glamorous, but it is always transformative. Each small, intentional act of effort signals to your mind and body that you are operating at a higher standard. Even leisure and rest must be approached with discipline. Time wasted is energy squandered, but rest taken consciously, moments dedicated to reflection, learning, and recovery, strengthens your capacity for greatness. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the importance of aligning every activity with reason and purpose. Raising standards is not about endless struggle, it is about designing every day so that your routines reinforce the version of yourself you are determined to become. Relationships and social interactions are equally critical. Surround yourself with people who challenge your thinking, who demand integrity, who inspire action. Avoid those who normalize complacency or feed doubt. Your standards extend beyond what you do alone. They influence how you engage with others, how you communicate, and the energy you allow into your life. Each encounter becomes a reflection of the standard you uphold, a test of whether you will maintain your commitment to excellence. Finally, review each day with honesty. What choices honored your standard? Where did compromise creep in? Reflection is not criticism, it is guidance. Marcus Aurelius practiced this consistently, examining his thoughts and actions with a clear lens to ensure alignment with virtue. This nightly evaluation is the engine that accelerates growth. Over time, your routines become more than habits. They become a system of power, a system where every thought, action, and interaction reinforces the elevated standard you have set. This is how ordinary lives transform into extraordinary ones. This is how discipline and consistency forge unstoppable momentum. When you consistently refuse to settle for less than your potential, your mind begins to shift, your emotions align, and your spirit strengthens. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the soul is shaped by its habits and judgments. The person you were yesterday is not the person you become tomorrow, unless you consciously raise the bar today. Each decision to act with discipline, courage, and integrity slowly rewires your perception of what is possible. Fear loses its grip. Doubt becomes a whisper rather than a command. You begin to see challenges as invitations, obstacles as teachers, and setbacks as opportunities for refinement. Consider the inner calm that arises when your standards are uncompromising. You no longer allow external chaos to control your mood, nor do you permit fleeting failures to define your self-worth. The emotional turbulence that once dominated your life begins to fade because your internal compass is anchored in purpose and principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote that happiness is found in accepting what is within your control and letting go of what is not. Raising your standards is the ultimate practice of this truth. Your actions, your habits, your focus, these are yours to control. Everything else is external noise. This transformation also cultivates confidence that is unshakable, not because life becomes easier, but because your character becomes stronger. Confidence is not a gift. It is the byproduct of repeated choices that honor your higher self. Every time you push through discomfort, every time you act with discipline, every time you confront fear instead of fleeing, you reinforce the truth that you are capable of far more than you imagined. The mind begins to trust itself. The spirit begins to command itself. Momentum becomes unstoppable because it is no longer dependent on circumstances. It is fueled by internal standards that are absolute and unwavering. Sustaining high standards changes how you perceive time and energy. Moments of procrastination and indecision are no longer tolerated because you understand their true cost, lost potential, diminished growth, and deferred greatness. Every hour becomes an opportunity to reinforce excellence. Every interaction, every task, every decision is measured against the benchmark you have set. Marcus Aurelius teaches that the wise man constantly examines his life as a work in progress. Raising your standards is this examination made actionable. It is living intentionally, deliberately, and without compromise. Finally, understand the emotional reward of this transformation. There is a profound sense of empowerment that arises when your life reflects the person you truly are. Pride is not derived from comparison or external validation, but from alignment, from knowing that your thoughts, your actions, and your habits consistently mirror your highest standard. The person who sustains this discipline experiences life differently. Challenges become stepping stones, failures become lessons, and every day becomes a deliberate step toward mastery. In this way, raising your standards is not merely a strategy for success. It is a path to freedom, clarity, and the unshakable strength that Marcus Aurelius so fiercely championed. The true test of your standards comes not in comfort, but in adversity. When life is easy, anyone can appear disciplined, confident, or focused. But Marcus Aurelius knew that character is revealed in the crucible of difficulty. Challenges, setbacks, and pressure are the arenas in which the quality of your standards is measured. Will you cling to excuses, give in to fear, or allow chaos to dictate your actions? Or will you hold fast to the principles and standards you have set, even when every instinct tells you to retreat? This is where ordinary lives diverge from extraordinary ones. Picture a person facing relentless pressure, a high-stakes project at work, a relationship on the edge, or personal goals that seem almost impossible. The external world offers no concessions, deadlines loom, expectations rise, and distractions multiply. Yet the individual who has raised their standards does not falter. Their mindset has been disciplined, their habits reinforced, and their focus unwavering. They do not rely on fleeting motivation because they understand that motivation is unreliable. Instead, they rely on principle, on commitment, and on the inner authority that says, "I act according to my standard, no matter the circumstances." Adversity reveals weakness where it exists, but it also uncovers untapped strength. Marcus Aurelius teaches that obstacles are not punishments, they are tools for growth. Each moment of pressure becomes an opportunity to reinforce your standard. When others complain, hesitate, or give in, you act decisively. When fear whispers, you answer with courage. When doubt presses, you respond with clarity. The discipline you've cultivated is the bridge that carries you through chaos, transforming potential failure into undeniable growth. Maintaining high standards under pressure also requires emotional mastery. Stress, frustration, and impatience are inevitable, but they do not control you unless you permit them. The Stoics understood that emotions are not commands, they are signals. When anger, anxiety, or doubt arise, respond with reason, reflection, and deliberate action. This is the essence of mental resilience, the ability to act in alignment with your principles, regardless of external pressure. Each moment of composure under strain reinforces the standard you have chosen, making it unbreakable over time. Finally, recognize that sustaining high standards during adversity reshapes your perception of life itself. Challenges no longer feel like obstacles designed to punish you, but like instruments of transformation, forging a stronger mind, a bolder spirit, and a clearer vision of your capabilities. Life becomes less a series of uncontrollable events and more a canvas for demonstrating who you are and what you will tolerate. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the universe tests us, not to defeat us, but to refine us. Every trial is an opportunity to reaffirm your standards, to act with discipline, and to claim the life that only those willing to endure pressure can achieve. It transforms who you believe you are. Your identity is not fixed, it is forged by the choices you make, the habits you cultivate, and the principles you refuse to compromise. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Your standards are the blueprint of your character. Every time you act in alignment with them, you reinforce a stronger version of yourself. Every compromise, on the other hand, chips away at your sense of who you can become. Consider the subtle shifts that occur when standards rise. The way you speak changes, your words become deliberate, confident, and intentional. The way you carry yourself shifts, posture straightens, energy sharpens, and presence strengthens. Decisions that once felt overwhelming now feel aligned and natural because they reflect a mind trained to demand more. Emotionally, you begin to trust yourself. The fear of judgment, the hesitation of doubt, the paralysis of indecision, they all weaken in the face of self-respect built from high standards. You begin to see that your identity is inseparable from the standard you uphold. Raising standards also transforms your perception of failure. No longer is a mistake a reason to quit. It becomes feedback, a mirror showing where your standards have not yet been fully met. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly emphasized that growth comes through reflection and correction. Each failure, each challenge, each uncomfortable situation becomes a tool for refining not only your actions, but your self-concept. You begin to measure your worth by the effort you invest and the integrity you maintain rather than the fleeting opinions of others. In this way, your identity is anchored in internal authority, not external approval. Relationships are reshaped as well. People respond to the energy you carry, and when your identity is grounded in high standards, you attract those who reflect or challenge that energy. Toxic influences, distractions, and casual negativity become harder to tolerate. You begin to align not only your actions but your social environment with the life you are determined to lead. Your sense of self expands, no longer limited by past compromises or others' expectations, but defined by the standard you uphold in every decision, every interaction, and every thought. Ultimately, raising your standards is the act of claiming your identity. You are no longer the person who waits, hesitates, or compromises out of fear or comfort. You are the person who chooses deliberately, who acts consistently, who meets challenge with courage, and who builds a life aligned with vision and purpose. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that our lives are shaped by what we repeatedly do, and excellence is not an event, but a habit. Each day, each choice, each deliberate action strengthens the identity of someone unstoppable, unshakable, and fully alive. When your standards rise, so does the person you are always capable of becoming. Raising your standards is the ultimate method to sharpen focus, amplify productivity, and cultivate mental clarity. When your expectations for yourself are low, your attention drifts, your energy dissipates, and distractions dominate. Marcus Aurelius emphasized that the mind is a powerful instrument, but it must be disciplined, trained, and aligned with purpose. By committing to higher standards, you direct your mental energy toward what truly matters, eliminating trivialities that scatter your focus and undermine your potential. Consider the average day of someone operating without elevated standards. Hours are consumed by unproductive scrolling, shallow engagement, and reactive thinking. Tasks pile up, deadlines approach, and stress escalates. There is no structure, no internal authority, no guiding principle shaping action. Now, imagine the same person with raised standards. Each moment is intentional. Every decision is filtered through a lens of purpose and discipline. Distractions lose their allure because the mind is anchored in clarity and priority. The hours once wasted now produce compounded results, and productivity becomes a natural byproduct of consistency and focus. Raising standards also enhances decision-making. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself to evaluate choices rationally, without being swayed by impulse or desire. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, decisions are no longer reactive or passive, they are deliberate, calculated, and aligned with long-term goals. The mental noise that once clouded judgment dissipates. You begin to see solutions clearly, anticipate consequences, and act decisively. Each choice reflects the integrity of your standard, and every action contributes to the momentum of progress. Mental clarity grows in parallel with focus. When you refuse to tolerate mediocrity in thought, habit, or behavior, the clutter of uncertainty, indecision, and self-doubt diminishes. Marcus Aurelius teaches that clarity of mind is the foundation of inner strength. A person with high standards does not waste energy on petty concerns or fleeting anxieties. The mind becomes a disciplined instrument, able to prioritize, strategize, and respond to challenges with precision. This clarity breeds confidence because you trust the process, your preparation, and your ability to act decisively. Finally, productivity is no longer a struggle, it becomes a natural extension of your elevated standard. By insisting on excellence in every action, no matter how small, you build momentum that compounds over time. Each completed task reinforces the belief that you are capable, disciplined, and relentless. Opportunities that once seemed unreachable now appear within grasp because your mind is organized, your energy focused, and your habits aligned. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that a life lived with clarity, discipline, and elevated standards is a life of mastery, not by chance, but by deliberate daily commitment. True strength is revealed not when life is smooth, but when it tests you to your core. Raising your standards builds more than skill or success, it forges resilience, grit, and emotional fortitude. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly emphasized that obstacles are opportunities for growth, that hardship is a teacher, and that suffering is only harmful if we allow it to dominate our judgment. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, setbacks no longer define your trajectory, they refine it. Imagine a person facing repeated failures, projects falling apart, relationships strained, goals delayed. Without elevated standards, these moments would lead to discouragement, self-pity, or retreat. But when standards are high, challenges are met with intention. You refuse to give in to frustration or despair. Each difficulty is a test. Can I maintain my commitment? Can I act with courage despite discomfort? Can I respond with clarity rather than chaos? Over time, this repeated exercise of strength under pressure builds an unshakable character. The mind learns to endure, the heart learns to persevere, and the spirit learns to rise unbroken. Emotional resilience grows because high standards demand accountability. You can no longer blame circumstance, others, or fleeting feelings for inaction or failure. Marcus Aurelius believed that the quality of life depends on the judgments we make. When you internalize this, every obstacle becomes a mirror reflecting where your discipline or clarity must improve. Instead of retreating into excuses, you confront reality with honesty and courage. You discover that your capacity to endure hardship is far greater than you ever imagined. Furthermore, elevated standards train patience and perspective. Life rarely unfolds perfectly. Projects take longer, goals require more effort, and people often fall short of expectations. Yet when your standard is high, you do not abandon effort at the first sign of difficulty. You learn to pace yourself, to act consistently, and to maintain integrity even when progress is slow. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that time is fleeting, and each moment wasted in reaction rather than reflection diminishes our potential. High standards teach you to endure the necessary struggle, knowing that persistence compounds into results and that character is proven in the long haul. Finally, resilience born from elevated standards transforms fear into mastery. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discomfort, all lose their power when you commit to a path defined by discipline and principle. You no longer act in reaction to fear but in alignment with purpose. Challenges become stepping stones, mistakes become lessons, and adversity becomes the forge that shapes an unbreakable mind and spirit. Raising your standards is not merely about achievement. It is about becoming someone capable of navigating life's storms with composure, courage, and unwavering resolve. It is the foundation for a life of vision, purpose, and lasting fulfillment. Marcus Aurelius understood that life is short, that time is fleeting, and that the quality of each moment determines the quality of a lifetime. To live deliberately, to leave a mark that aligns with your potential, you must demand more from yourself than the world expects. Elevated standards create a lens through which every action, every choice, every decision becomes aligned with your higher goals. Consider the person who drifts without clear expectations, living day to day, reacting to circumstance. Time slips through their fingers, opportunities are wasted, and dreams slowly fade. Now imagine that same person deciding to rise above mediocrity. They set uncompromising standards for themselves in thought, action, and commitment. Suddenly, their daily routines are not just habits, they are the scaffolding of a larger purpose. Every task, no matter how small, is an investment in the life they are determined to create. Each choice is measured against the vision of the person they intend to become. Elevated standards allow clarity of purpose to emerge. When mediocrity is no longer tolerated, distractions lose their grip and short-term temptations are weighed against long-term goals. Marcus Aurelius taught that virtue lies in acting according to reason, not impulse. Standards are the practical application of this wisdom, the daily expression of integrity, discipline, and intentionality. By refusing to settle, you align your energy, your focus, and your actions with a vision that transcends fleeting satisfaction or external validation. This approach also builds momentum toward legacy. Life becomes more than survival or comfort, it becomes a deliberate journey toward impact. The person who maintains elevated standards does not wait for permission to pursue greatness. They do not rely on luck or circumstance to provide opportunity. Instead, they create their own leverage through discipline, consistency, and uncompromising action. The cumulative effect is extraordinary achievements, growth and influence that feel impossible to those who remain content with mediocrity. Finally, raising standards ensures that life is lived with intention, not regret. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly emphasized reflection and the impermanence of time. By committing to higher standards, you invest in experiences, growth, and accomplishments that align with your true potential. You wake up each day with purpose, guided by the understanding that every choice matters, that every action contributes to your trajectory, and that the person you are becoming is inseparable from the standards you uphold. In this way, elevated standards are not simply rules, they are a declaration of vision, a roadmap for fulfillment, and the key to a life that resonates with meaning, impact, and unstoppable momentum. Raising your standards is the gateway to living with intention, clarity, and purpose. It is the force that turns vague aspirations into deliberate action and fleeting desires into lasting achievement. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that life is not measured by time alone, but by the quality of the choices we make each day. Every decision you make either aligns with your potential or diminishes it. When you refuse to settle for mediocrity, when you hold yourself accountable to higher expectations, you create a framework through which your life begins to take shape according to your own design, rather than by chance or circumstance. Without elevated standards, life drifts. Days slip by unnoticed, energy is squandered on trivialities, and goals remain unfulfilled. The person who tolerates mediocrity wakes up feeling tired, distracted, or aimless, constantly reacting to external pressures rather than shaping their own path. But the moment you insist on more from yourself, everything changes. You begin to view your actions, your routines, and even your failures through the lens of potential. Each choice becomes a building block for the vision of the life you are determined to construct. Small decisions accumulate into significant progress, and the ordinary moments of your day transform into a foundation for extraordinary results. Elevated standards clarify purpose. They eliminate confusion and hesitation because every action is measured against the benchmark you have set. Short-term pleasure is weighed against long-term gain. Distractions lose their appeal because they do not serve the person you are striving to become. Marcus Aurelius teaches that virtue lies in intentional action, in aligning thought, choice, and behavior with reason. Standards are the practical manifestation of this philosophy. They ensure that your energy, attention, and effort are consistently directed toward what truly matters, creating a life of meaningful achievement rather than reactive existence. Standards also cultivate momentum and resilience. When challenges arise, and they always do, the person committed to higher standards does not crumble under pressure. Each obstacle is approached as a test of commitment and a chance to reinforce principles. Failure is reframed as feedback, a tool for refinement rather than a signal of inadequacy. Over time, this disciplined approach produces compounding results. Skill grows, confidence strengthens, influence expands, and opportunities that once seemed out of reach become attainable. Life begins to reward consistency, courage, and intentional action, because these are the hallmarks of someone who refuses to accept anything less than their full potential. Ultimately, raising standards aligns your daily life with your highest vision. It transforms fleeting ambition into sustained purpose, frustration into clarity, and indecision into decisive action. Marcus Aurelius would argue that our days are too precious to be lived without direction, too short to waste on complacency. By demanding more from yourself, you create a life that is deliberate, impactful, and unshakably strong. Every choice, every habit, every effort becomes a reflection of who you are becoming. Elevated standards are not merely a tool for success, they are the blueprint for a meaningful life, a guide to fulfilling your potential, and the pathway to leaving a legacy built on courage, discipline, and relentless pursuit of excellence. The moment you truly raise your standards, something extraordinary happens. You stop asking permission from the world, from others, and even from your own doubts. You become the architect of your life, the commander of your mind, and the guardian of your potential. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every challenge, every fear, every moment of hesitation transforms into an opportunity to prove to yourself what you are capable of. Your standards are no longer a set of rules, they become the code that shapes your destiny. Think about it. When you refuse to tolerate mediocrity, your energy changes, your focus sharpens, and your confidence solidifies. The world doesn't suddenly become easier, you simply become stronger, clearer, and unstoppable. Each choice, no matter how small, compounds into results that cannot be ignored. Self-doubt fades because you now trust yourself. Distractions lose their power because your vision is too important to be derailed. Every action you take is a declaration. You will not settle. You will not compromise. You will rise. And here is the most important truth. Raising your standards doesn't just improve your life. It transforms who you are. Your identity evolves. Your mind becomes disciplined. Your heart becomes courageous. Your spirit becomes unbreakable. You begin to see that the power you've been searching for was never outside, it was always within, waiting for the moment you decided to demand more from yourself. Marcus Aurelius teaches that greatness is a choice repeated daily in the small acts of integrity, courage, and discipline. This is your choice. This is your moment. So today, take that first deliberate step. Decide that mediocrity will no longer dictate your life. Commit to the standards that reflect your potential, your courage, and your vision. Do it not for anyone else, but for the person you are becoming. Build habits that reinforce your strength. Embrace challenges that test your resolve. Let every setback remind you that growth is forged in struggle. The life you desire, the strength you seek, the clarity you need, it is all within reach, waiting for your decision to rise. And if you want to continue your journey toward mastery, inner strength, and unstoppable momentum, don't forget to subscribe to the Stoicism Notebook channel. Here, we explore the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, the power of discipline, and the practices that turn ordinary days into extraordinary lives. Every insight, every lesson, every reflection is designed to guide you toward the highest standard of yourself. Raise your standards today. Shape your destiny. Become unstoppable.